All right, let's begin our next section, next part of looking at the American way of war, a comparison of Overlord to Bagration. And what we're opening with here in this section is a look at the 8th Air Force. Now, the 8th Air Force is not a direct participant in the invasion of Normandy, but it shows a tremendous contrast between the ideas of the Soviet Union and the ideas of the United States. And in that case, I wanted to spend some time taking a look at it and sharing it with you. And so we looked at the Battle of the Atlantic for a few moments. And the Battle of the Atlantic was a huge, um, massive effort by the United States to wipe the U-boat out of the Atlantic. Uh, and I think we mentioned it as being equal almost to another front. The strategic bombing campaign that we're looking at here is again almost equal to another front. As we'll see in a few minutes, there's over 1 million U.S. personnel in here. And I'm just talking about the U.S. Air Force here, the 8th Air Force. I'm not going to deal with Bomber Command, the United Kingdom Bomber Command. They actually drop more bombs on Axis forces than we do. But the comparison between the United States and the Soviet Union is profound. Uh, and the difference, the strategic bombing, the American campaign, the American premise was to go after key industries. The most successful was the transportation campaign and the oil industry. The oil campaign was instrumental in the destruction. Um, the Here you can see the picture of the Soviet. The Soviets don't build any long-range bombers. I mean, they have a long-range, a 4-engine bomber, but they never make any number of it, and they never do anything with it of import. So they're basically restricted to medium bombers, so the range is limited, nothing like what we're looking at. And we build over 2,000 heavy bombers. Uh, we build many more than that, but uh, we'll get that in a minute. But the Soviets have nothing like the number of bombers that we have, strategic, strategic bombers that we have. So there is a tremendous difference. Now, the 8th Air Force is going to drop 440,000 bomb sorties, so an enormous number of bomb raids over Axis forces. They're going to drop 600, almost 700,000 tons of bombs on Axis targets. This is, I think it goes on for about 2.5 years. Now, again, this relates to Wiggly. Again, it's an example of using technology to try to substitute for manpower and an incredible development of technology. The the technology that goes into the B-17, and then, as we'll see later on, it goes into the B-29 bomber that's in the Pacific. An enormous amount of technology. Um, One of the extraordinary numbers coming out of this is the B-24. One of the plants the B-24 is built in is Ford's Willow Run plant. Um, and just as the Liberty ship Perry we talked about the other day, um, they had tremendous production at the Willow Run. They finally got up to turning out a B-24 every 63 minutes, which is an unbelievable record of an organization and accomplishment. So the 8th Avenue, the 8th Avenue, the 8th Air Force is a very incredible 75,000 air crew. So the pilots, navigated bombardiers. It's a large crew in a B-17 and the B-24. The ground forces, over 250,000 people. But there are 26,000 die in those planes, so it's a tremendous loss. This is one of the heaviest losses of any in America for the number killed. And then the other part of that is besides 26,000 dying, there's 28,000 POWs and over 4,000 bombers, B-24s, B-17s are lost. It's a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous loss. Now, for those who claim that it didn't stop German manufacturing, Albert Speer did an incredible job in manufacturing in Germany. And indeed, some of the production numbers at the end of the war in 44, 45 were higher than they had been earlier. So they were doing an extraordinary job. But when they were producing aircraft, there wasn't enough petroleum to get the planes to the bases where they had to fly because the Allied petroleum attacks were so devastating. The other part of it is Germany allocated a third of its war production to air defense. The German 88 was an incredible piece of artillery and did horrible jobs to either Soviet tanks or Allied tanks. And a huge proportion of all those 88s went to air defense sectors. And the same thing with the aircraft that were produced just to fight against the B-17 and B-24. So the amount of production on the side of the Germans that went to air defense was really, really significant. That is a factor, but it's huge. And here, again, are the numbers of support of this. The bottom line is that there's over 1 million people in the UK supporting the air effort, and so this goes in the logistics train, the training support of the airfields, construction and maintenance, huge number of airfields all across the UK, and then the whole supports team of radar and intelligence, etc. And then realize besides the 8th Air Force, we have the 9th Air Force, the Tactical Air Force that comes in, and then other Air Force units assigned and located in other places than just in the UK. But look at the numbers here. These are unbelievable. 12,000 B-17s built. B-24s, 18,000 built. So the numbers of production on the side of the Americans is unbelievable. Then the other thing that was important to them, and again, a major element of both technology and industry, is the escort vehicles that are developed to support the B-17. And so the P-47 comes up early on, and then when they develop drop tanks that improve the range of the P-47, these go in, and when a P-47 squadron is accompanying and escorting a B-17 attack, the Luftwaffe has a great deal of trouble with it. And the Luftwaffe knows exactly when the P-47s run out of fuel and have to return, and they are waiting at that line to pounce on the B-17s as soon as they lose their escorts. So these are the ranges. The Spitfire here has a very limited range, can barely reach the con. In fact, one of the reasons they attacked at Normandy is because the Spitfire could reach the beaches there. And then when the 47 comes in, the Thunderbolt comes in, that increases the range. When you increase the Thunderbolt with drop tanks, they're going to go out here. But the real change comes when the P-51 arrives, and the P-51 now can reach almost all across Germany. And then when we have bases in Italy developing that, the range comes up north. So the war changes as these escort fighters develop. The other thing that was interesting in this is that they realized that when the fighters finish their escort duties, they turn them free. And what they do on their return to base, they basically start attacking the Luftwaffe bases en route, and they literally destroy the Luftwaffe on the ground. Tremendous destruction to Soviets. And here's a quote that You may have heard Göring, who of course is the leader of the German Luftwaffe, developed it. When he sees the first P-51 over Berlin, he says that the war is ended. The P-51 was perhaps the greatest fighter of World War II, and it just made mincemeat out of the German planes. And now, of course, the Germans developed the jet, and the jet is able to hold its own against the Mustang, but some Mustangs even knock down jets. Now, here's an image I want you to see that's scary as hell, but I think I should share it and let you see it. Remember, all the total bombs dropped were about 700,000 kilotons. If the Soviets now, one warhead, and warheads today are all MIRV, that means they have a multiple independently targeted re-entry vehicle. That's what MIRV means. So it means when they're driving a missile, the missile, the one individual missile can carry, as you can see here, to 5 to 10 different warheads on it. So each of those warheads can be 200 kilotons. So 3 of those MIRV missiles carry all of the wartime tonnage that the 8th Air Force dropped. So the normal, here's a map of New York, here's a radius of an attack on Times Square. Here's a kill figure of 2.6 million if this hit here. Realize that in a war plan for the Soviets against the New York metropolitan area, they would probably target 5 to 10 different warheads at the various sections. It would probably be every bridge, every railroad junction, every harbor, not only military bases, but certainly any military bases. So realize what took 1 million men and cost 26,000 lives, one warhead would be a multiple of that in today if we had an exchange today. A horrible, horrible thought. All right, let's go on to our next topic. And again, one that Wigley really doesn't emphasize to the degree it should. Here is another map of Normandy. Now, what has been added to this is the 3 airborne divisions that go in, and you realize that two American beaches, 2 American divisions are dropped airborne, 82nd and 101st, but they're 2 of the beaches, Gold and Sword, are British attacks. The other airborne division dropped is British, and then there's a Canadian beach where they have 2 divisions coming in. So the support of allies for US is very, very different. Now we talked to logistics. Remember, with logistics, we had a sharing, an equal sharing of the logistics across all these areas. And we were the suppliers to an enormous degree to all of our allies here. Some of you may know Operation Uranus. That was the operation where Zhukov attacked Stalingrad and surrounded the German 6th Army at Stalingrad, where he attacked in opening up that attack that surrounded and destroyed the 6th Army. He attacked Italian divisions and Romanian divisions fighting for the Germans because he knew they were under-equipped and undersupplied and poor officers. So the Soviets have allies. In fact, in the Operation Bagration, there's actually a Polish division fighting alongside the Soviets, but they're getting nowhere near equality in logistics, and that's one of the things that Eisenhower insists on here, and a very fundamental difference between the United States and the Soviet Union. And here you see a picture of SHAEF, and what you have, it's a combined chiefs of staff. So it isn't one from each nation, it's a combined chief of staff. So some of Eisenhower's biggest support generals here are British, and they have a strong voice in this. When you go to Stalin and the Stavka, the Soviet High Command, first of all, it's totally controlled by Stalin, a total autocrat and dictator, and everything is basically done on political. So while he has Polish, Czech, Romanian, Bulgarian, they're under tight control, and so the use of allies is fundamentally different. And of course, America has been tied to allies from the American Revolution and the enormous support the French gave us in the Revolution. And of course, we went over and assisted in World War I. So Eisenhower's policy is consensus-based, and under Stalin, there's nothing about consensus-based. Stalin makes the decisions, and you do it the way Stalin issues the orders to. And shared planning and integration and token allies, totally change. And combined chiefs of staff run into consensus. And the Stavka is direct orders. And then open intelligence sharing across. There's not going to be sharing across all of the allies to the Soviets. Just isn't going to happen. And then this is what I've already mentioned. When you look at the supplies coming in, the Mulberry Beaches, one here and one here. So they were two. This one is wiped out in a storm that does tremendous damage on the day that the backup date for the invasion was when this incredible storm hit. But we still have the Mulberry here, and this is shared across all the allies. And then here are the Mulberries, and then Pluto is, we mentioned before, is the oil pipeline, and again, that is shared equally across all the allies. There's no differential in that. So again, the fundamental difference, partnership, logistics, capital, diplomacy. So as you've certainly read about, Eisenhower spends as much time on political maneuvering among his allies as he does anything else. Oops, this is